round. I parted my legs a bit more and gripped the sheets, needing something to hold on to as I stared at Reilly. His gaze possessed me like it always did.
"Are you going to come, Angel?"
I gave a small nod. It had been too long. I was falling apart so quickly. He didn't speed up the pace as his other hand pushed up my dress so he could see his finger working me, round and round.
"Part your legs more,"
he growled, and I did. He slipped between my folds again, spreading my wetness some more.
"I want to fuck you so badly."
"You're still healing," I rasped. His broken bones needed to mend. One of us needed to be the voice of reason, even if my body hated me for it. He sat up stiffly.
"Straddle me with your ass facing me."
"What?"
"Do it,"
he ordered. I didn't question him. Could barely think straight from the throbbing between my legs. I pushed up and climbed over Reilly, careful not to ram my knees into his ribs. My palms rested beside his knees as I knelt over him, my ass pushing out. Reilly lifted up my dress until I was exposed, and my core tightened in anticipation.
"Fuck,"
Reilly murmured, causing me to shiver again. I gasped when he pushed 2 fingers into me, my back arching at the delicious sensation of my walls gripping him. Reilly let out a low groan, and I almost came hearing it. I could see the proof of his own need straining against his sweatpants.
"The sight of your pussy taking my fingers is the fucking best."
I whimpered in response and began to meet his thrusts, kneading his fingers deeper, faster, harder.
"Yes, Angel, take them,"
he rasped. More wetness pooled between my legs. I threw a glance over my shoulder. Reilly was focused on his fingers as they fucked me, his dark eyes burning with so much desire it stole my breath. I shuddered with pleasure. He glanced up, his lips curling in a pleased smile.
"Come on, Angel. Fuck my fingers."
Reilly added a 3rd finger, and my eyes rolled back in my head at the sensation. I ground myself against Reilly's hand, driving his fingers deeper into me. He watched me intently, and his other hand began massaging my butt. I wanted to grasp his erection, but I could hardly support myself with 2 arms, already spinning out of control. He gathered my wetness with the fingers of his other hand, and then I felt 1 finger against my back entrance. I tensed but didn't stop riding Reilly's fingers.
"Relax,"
Reilly ordered, his eyes compelling.
"It'll be good."
Anxious and excited, I gave a small nod. Slowly, he pushed a finger into me. "Oh, God," I gasped as I felt his fingers in both my openings. There was a slight discomfort, but it didn't stand a chance against the pleasure Reilly's fingers in my center caused. Reilly established a gentle rhythm with his finger while I kept grinding myself against his other hand. He didn't take his eyes off me as he worked my body, and I could feel the first traitorous spasm of my orgasm. My pussy clenched around his fingers. I moaned, the sensations overwhelming me. I felt a 2nd finger at my back entrance and tensed again. Reilly stroked my butt cheek, and as I drove his fingers deep into me, he curled them and hit my G-spot. I came hard, crying out desperately, and he pushed the 2nd finger into my back entrance. I gasped from the pain, and my orgasm heightened in force. I shuddered, caught between intense pleasure and dull pain. My arms gave way, and I braced myself on my forearms. Reilly kept thrusting.
"Yes, Angel. I told you I'd show you pain and pleasure."
Half lowered onto him, I could feel his erection digging into my belly. He groaned again, almost in agony. I was completely overwhelmed, stunned, and a little embarrassed. I'd never considered allowing someone to go anywhere near my ass. Of course, Remo wanted that part of me as well. Remo pulled out of me slowly, and I gasped. His hands came down on my ass cheeks, and he massaged me gently.
If I died now, it would be worth it.
I huffed. You won't die today. I won't explain that to Nino. No, thank you. Remo chuckled, and the sound sent a different kind of shiver through my body. I loved the sound of Remo laughing, especially if it was earnest. I pushed myself up, then knelt beside Remo. He curled his hand over my neck and pulled me toward him for a slow kiss. When he drew back, his eyes searched my face. I knew my cheeks were flushed, not just from my orgasm, but also from embarrassment.
There's so much pleasure I still want to show you,
Remo murmured, tracing his lips over my jaw and cheek. He dropped his head back against the headboard, sighing as he reached for a glass filled with dark liquid on his nightstand. I recognized the scent immediately. Scotch, really?
It'll help with the healing, trust me. I've done a lot of research in the past.
I shook my head.
And, he added with a challenging smile, it seems to be the only pleasure I'm allowed today.
He took a sip. My eyes darted down to the impressive bulge in his pants. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to render him into a helpless mess of desire as he did with me.
Trying to decide if you're brave enough?
I glowered. I've given you a blowjob before. His mouth twitched.
You tried, but you didn't finish, so it doesn't count.
I knew he was trying to goad me. Unfortunately, it was working. I moved down until I knelt beside his groin. Remo reached for his pants and pulled them down, wincing as he did so. Quite eager, aren't you? I teased. He smiled, but it was dark and hungry, and his body was tense. I lowered my head and took his tip into my mouth. Remo moaned, his fingers tingling in my hair. I swirled my tongue around him, and my own core tightened with renewed need. Remo's breathing deepened, his muscles tensing as he watched me.
Take more of me,
Remo ordered quietly, and I did. I let him claim my mouth until he hit the back of my throat. He thrust into me slowly, his hand in my hair keeping me in place. He held my gaze as I let him claim my mouth. His other hand cupped my cheek. Remo, brutality and tenderness. I still didn't understand him or us. Remo's body coiled tighter, his hips jerking up with less control, lips parting in a low moan.
I'm going to come,
he rasped. I saw the question in his expression, and my heart swelled with affection, and God help me, love. I gave a small nod around his head before he drove deeper into my mouth again, and his grip on my neck became firmer. His face twisted with passion, his eyes almost harsh with lust as he tensed and came with a sharp exhale. I had trouble swallowing around his length, and Remo loosened his hold on my neck so I could pull back slightly. He kept rocking his hips, his breathing harsh. Remo's gaze laid claim to another part of me, possessive and warm as he stroked my cheek. I slowly released his cock from my lips and swallowed, frowning at the taste. Remo drew me toward him, brushed my lips with his, and handed me his glass with scotch. I took a sip and coughed. That tasted even worse.
You'll get used to the taste,
he said with a small laugh. The scotch or your... He gripped my arms and wrenched me against him so I was cradled against his chest. I caught the wince, but then it was gone.
My cum,
he murmured as he licked my lips, then dove into my mouth. Our kiss was slow, almost teasing, until it wasn't. It became needy and eager. He positioned me so one of my legs was thrown over his groin, my head against his shoulder. His hand parted me, then his fingers slid over my drenched panties. He pushed the fabric aside and slowly pushed 2 fingers into me. His other hand began pinching and twirling my nipple. He played me masterfully with his fingers as I lay draped over him. We kissed softly, our eyes locked the entire time until a new wave of pleasure shot through me. I'd barely caught my breath when Greta's cry rang out. I sighed with a small smile.
"Perfect timing,"
he murmured, giving me another lingering kiss. I quickly slid out of bed and rushed into the bathroom to wash my hands before I returned to the bedroom. Remo stood beside the door, waiting for me. "You should stay in bed and rest," I said.
"I should help you with our children."
His voice didn't allow any objections, and I had to stifle a pleased smile. By the time we arrived in the nursery, Navio had started crying as well. I took Greta because she didn't know Remo well enough. Remo lifted Navio out of the crib without hesitation and pressed him to his chest. It was obvious that he'd held a baby before, that he knew how to handle them. I took a whiff. New diapers. Remo carried Navio over to the changing table and began his work. I watched him for a moment longer, my body flooding with so many hormones. I could feel the waterworks beginning. I blinked and looked away. "I'll go into the kitchen and prepare their bottles." Remo glanced up, his gaze lingering on my eyes, then nodded. When I returned 10 minutes later, Navio was already dressed and resting in Remo's arm. I handed him a bottle, and he sank down in the armchair, wincing again. He was moving more stiffly than before, probably from overexertion. I changed Greta's diaper before I settled on the armrest beside Remo and started feeding her. "This is strange," I whispered after a moment. Remo frowned.
"It's not what I imagined when I kidnapped you."
I searched his face, trying to figure out what this meant to him, what I really meant to him, but I didn't dare ask. I knew it was futile to stay away from Remo, not only because my body was already calling for his touch again, but also because my heart yearned for his closeness. After they had fallen back asleep, I was on my way toward my room when Remo gripped my wrist, stopping me.
"Stay with me."
I nodded and allowed Remo to pull me back to his bedroom, where I put one of his shirts on before slipping under the covers. Remo pulled me against him, wincing as I touched his bruises. "You're in pain," I protested, trying to put distance between us, but Remo tightened his hold on me.
"Fuck the pain. I want you in my arms."
I stilled and finally relaxed against him, my cheek pressed up to his strong chest. This felt too good to be true. Chapter 30. Serafina. Christmas rolled around. The first Christmas for Navio and Greta. The first Christmas as a part of the Falcone clan. After wishing Samuel a Merry Christmas and not hearing anything in return, I went downstairs with Navio and Greta. Remo was already in the living room with his brothers, discussing their plans for future races. After the outfit attack, safety measures would have to be doubled. I was supposed to help Chiara in the kitchen, but still needed to figure out what to do with the kids. Remo looked up when I entered. As usual, his expression stilled when he saw me with our twins, almost as if he still had a hard time trusting his eyes. "Can you watch them?" I asked as I headed toward them. Nino sat beside Remo. Adamo and Savio were on the couch across from them. "Will you take Navio?" I asked Nino, who rose at once and took my son from me. Navio didn't mind, too fascinated by the tattoos on Nino's arms. I moved closer to Remo. Greta was clinging to me, still shy around others. Remo gave me a questioning look. He hadn't held his daughter yet. The only person except for me who didn't make Greta wail was Cora. He gently stroked her black tuft of hair, then ran his hand down her back. His voice was low and soft as he spoke to her.
Greta, mia cara.
My heart seemed to skip a beat. It was the first time I heard Remo speak Italian. My family and I had only ever spoken Italian when we were surrounded by outsiders, and I knew many families handled it the same way. I carefully untangled her from my neck and gave her to Remo. Her big, dark eyes blinked up at him, and her face began to twist. Remo rocked her gently in the crook of his arm, then lowered his face and kissed the top of her head. She let out a hesitant cry, as if she wasn't sure if she wanted to wail or not. I handed him her favorite rattle, and he showed it to her. She reached for it, eyes already brightening, and he helped her shake it. I took a step back, then another as Remo rocked her. Remo sank down, still rattling and whispering words of consolation. Greta's expression made it clear that she wasn't convinced yet, but that she wasn't wailing was a good sign. Savio and Adamo looked as if they were having a stroke. I got it. Remo was one of the most feared men of the country, and here he cradled his baby girl in his arms, patient and careful. Nino was rocking Navio on his thigh, and my son let out delighted screeches. "I suppose that's the end of my whoring days in the house," Savio muttered. Remo looked up from Greta, his eyes narrowing.
"I don't want a fucking whore anywhere near my children."
Greta cried at the harshness in his voice, and Remo's lips tightened. He shook her gently, then murmured something I didn't catch. The moment she stopped crying, I turned and left. My babies were cared for. I finally went to help Chiara in the kitchen. Chiara was taking care of the vegetarian appetizers and the vegetarian main course, while I tried my hand at a roast beef and a chocolate cake. I didn't have much experience preparing any kind of food, except for the occasional baby puree, so this proved to be a challenge. Later, we all settled around the table with a well-done roast beef, not medium rare as intended, and a slightly burnt chocolate cake, but nobody minded. During my captivity, I'd only caught glimpses of the brotherly bond Remo and his brothers shared, but now as I became a part of their family, I realized just how strongly they cared for each other. Remo had traded himself for Adamo, had signed his death sentence so Adamo could live. There was no greater sign of love than that. It gave me hope that Remo was capable of that kind of emotion. When Remo and I returned to our bedroom that night, I risked another glance at my phone, and my shoulders slumped. No messages. Remo came up behind me, his hands on my waist, his lips hot on my throat.
"Do you regret leaving the outfit?"
I leaned back against him. His chest was bare, and he'd removed most of the bandages, despite Nino's protests. "No, Greta and Navio will be happier here." He bit down on my throat gently.
"And you?"
I turned in his hold and kissed him. "I think I'll be happy too." Remo pulled my dress over my head before he backed me up toward the bed, and we both fell down. We kissed for a long time, until I was desperate and hot. Remo moved down my body and removed my panties, then stretched out between my legs. His lips and tongue pushed me over the edge within a couple of minutes. Then he climbed back up, his body covering mine, his weight braced on his forearms. His eyes held mine when he slammed into me, claiming me fully for the first time in 14 months. "Remo," I gasped out. Despite the flashes of pain on his face, Remo's thrusts didn't falter. He hit deep and hard, his eyes owning me. When he reached between us and stroked my clit, I cried out, clenching around him and gripping his shoulders tightly. Remo growled in pain and pleasure, but kept thrusting as I rode out my orgasm. He kissed me fiercely, possessively, then pulled out. He turned me on my stomach before he kissed my ear as he settled between my thighs. I felt a firm presence at my ass and stiffened in surprise and fear. Remo stroked my back, massaged my butt.
"I want to own every part of you,"
he murmured, kissing my shoulder. He turned my head so I met his gaze and kissed me slowly. Remo had put his fingers into me a couple of times, but his erection was so much bigger.
"Say something,"
he urged. I swallowed, nervous. "I'm yours, all of me." Remo's eyes softened.
"Relax, Angel. I'll be careful."
For a moment his weight lifted, and I heard him take something from the drawer. Over my shoulder I saw him covering his cock with lube. Then he was back over me. He bit down on my shoulder blade lightly as he pushed forward, and I arched up when the stretching got too bad. Remo stopped, kissed my shoulder, my cheek. His hands slid under my body, found my nipple and my clit. He tugged at my nipple while his fingers stroked my clit and opening. Soon I loosened around him as pain and pleasure mixed. He pushed 2 fingers into me and groaned roughly. The sound, so primal and erotic, my core clenched with arousal.
"I feel my cock inside you. It's perfect."
I moaned as he moved his fingers slowly, while his other hand kept twisting my nipple. Despite the pain, I felt a release approaching. My lips parted, and my muscles tightened as pleasure overcame me. Remo pushed his cock into me all the way, and I moaned and whimpered, caught up between pain and pleasure. I'd never felt more stretched, teetering on the edge of overwhelming pain, and yet happy that Remo had claimed this part of me as well. I shivered, overcome with sensations. Remo kissed my cheek.
"Can I?"
I gave a nod, and he pulled almost all the way out. I trembled as he pushed back in. He kept working my pussy as he thrust into me slowly.
"It'll get better, Angel,"
he murmured. His movements became faster, and I bit down on my lip. Pain and pleasure mingled, almost becoming one. Remo's body pressed me into the mattress as his cock and fingers claimed me. With a guttural groan, Remo slammed into me one more time, and I felt his release. I shuddered desperately under him. Remo stayed inside of me for a couple of heartbeats, his breath hot on my shoulder, his fingers gentle, almost soothing on my clit. He pulled out of me carefully, then turned me on my side and pressed up behind me, kissing my shoulder. I couldn't move, overwhelmed, stunned. Every time I thought Remo had taken everything, he took another part of me.
"Angel?"
he asked in a low voice. I turned around in his embrace and nestled close to him, my nose buried in the crook of his neck. Remo tensed and gripped my chin, nudging my face up. I could see a hint of hesitation on his face as he evaluated my expression.
"You will never surrender to my will because you think I want you to. Was it too painful?"
I glanced up, swallowing hard. Remo was concerned for me. Cruel, merciless, brutal to the very core, and yet concerned for me. I wanted to surrender to you, to give myself to you like that. You already own every other part of me. His brows pulled together even further. He traced my face with his finger.
"I don't enjoy hurting you unless it heightens your pleasure."
I tilted my head. You sound surprised.
"I enjoy hurting people, but not you. Never you."
I fell silent, wondering what it meant. Remo pushed up and reached over me and into the drawer of his nightstand. He pulled out a small parcel, then set it down between us.
For you,
he said. My eyebrows rose. He hadn't given me a present earlier, but I had assumed the gifts for Greta and Navio had been meant for me as well. It had been difficult enough to get something for Remo. Eventually, I'd opted for a guide of running trails of the region, as well as a quickly assembled photo book from our twins' first 7 months. What is it?
Open it,
Remo demanded, fingertips tracing my side and hip. I lifted the lid and my breath stilled as my eyes registered the necklace with the pendant in the shape of wings. It was a beautiful piece of finely worked goldsmithing, intricately gorgeous. I took it out carefully. Where did you get it? You didn't leave the house.
I had it handcrafted by a local goldsmith shortly after I released you.
My lips fell open in surprise. Remo helped me put the necklace on, and the cool gold settled in the valley between my breasts.
Ruinously gorgeous,
Remo murmured as he traced my skin. I gave him a curious look.
You ruined me for all other women.
A wave of possessiveness overcame me. Remo was mine.
Remo. I watched Serafina as she stroked the heads of our children, patient, loving, even though they both had been crying on and off for hours. She sang to them, whispered words of sweet nothings to them. She had left her family for them so they would be safe, so they would get the life they deserved, the life they were destined for. I had seen the look in her eyes when she'd said goodbye to her twin. Serafina had given up so much for our children. Her body was weaker than mine. She wasn't as harsh or cruel or fearless. But God, she was strong. When Navio and Greta had finally fallen asleep, she'd straightened from where she'd bent over their crib, and when she noticed me, she tensed slightly but came toward me. She'd been oddly quiet today, and I knew something was bothering her. But I didn't talk emotions if I could help it. Serafina stopped in the hallway. I've been here for 3 weeks, but I still don't know what we are. I braced myself beside her shoulders, peering down at her. You're an angel, and I'm your ruin. My lips pulled into a wry smile. She shook her head, almost angrily. What am I to you? Your lover? Your girlfriend? A nice change from your usual whores? My own anger spiked. What do you want me to say? Nothing, she said quietly. I want the truth. I need to know what to expect from you. I love death. I love spilling blood and causing pain. I love to see terror in people's eyes, and that won't ever change. I whispered harshly, because it was true. She looked up at me. You are the cruelest man I know. You took everything from me. I nodded, because that was true as well. Few women can bear the darkness. I can't. I won't force you to be with me. You are free. Free to do as I please, she murmured, warm and soft against me, tantalizing. Even take another man into my bed? A burst of rage filled me. I wanted her for myself. Wanted to remain the only man who'd ever tasted those perfect lips, who'd ever claimed her. But more than that, I wanted her to want it too. I swallowed my fury. Even that, I said, then continued in a harsh whisper. I won't stop you. I won't punish you for it. She smiled a knowing smile. But you will kill anyone who touches me. I brought our lips close. Not just kill them. Obliterate them in the cruelest way possible for touching something they are unworthy of. Challenge flickered in her eyes. Are you worthy? I claimed her mouth, hard and desperate, before pulling back. Oh no, Angel. From the day I saw you, I knew I was the least worthy of them all. I should have never laid a hand on her. But I was a fucking bastard, and had taken everything she was willing to give. She tilted her head up, regarding me. She opened my shirt slowly, one button after the other, and it gave way under those elegant fingers. She rested her palm against my chest, over my heart. Is there something in there capable of love? My fucking chest constricted. Whatever's in there, it's yours. Whatever love I'm capable of, it's yours too. She cupped my face, her eyes fierce, almost brutal in their intensity. You are beyond redemption, Reilly, she whispered, and I smiled bitterly because I knew it. She shook her head. But so am I, because even free to do as I please, I choose you. I'm no angel. An angel wouldn't love a man like you, but I do. I love you. And she kissed me harshly, brutally, all rage and love, and I kissed her back with the same love, the same rage. This woman had stolen my black heart. From the first moment I saw her, I wanted to own her. At first to destroy the outfit and Dante, then later because it became an irresistible need, a voracious longing. And in the end, Serafina was the one who owned me, black heart, condemned soul, scarred body. Every fucking part of me was hers. And if she'd let me, I'd be hers till my last day.
Serafina. My heart burned with emotions, fiercely. Reilly had declared his love for me, something I'd never considered a possibility. This cruel man owned my heart, and I didn't want it any other way. Reilly's kiss was violent, harsh. Then he pulled back.
Marry me.
I froze. It had been an order. Reilly wasn't a man who asked for anything. I leaned back against the wall slowly, searching his eyes. He didn't let me retreat. He kissed me again, but gentler.
Marry me, angel.
It still wasn't a question, but his voice wasn't dominant anymore. It was soft, compelling, raw. Become a falcone? I murmured against his lips.
Become a falcone. Become mine.
I smiled. I have been yours for a long time.
Is that a yes?
He asked, his hand sliding over my outer thigh, stroking, distracting me. Yes, I whispered.
Serafina Falcone,
he murmured.
I like the sound of it.
I smiled because this name sounded right, more right than Mancini ever had. Was this love? Was this madness? I didn't care. It was perfection either way. Chapter 31. Serafina. I was inexplicably nervous when Reilly told me he wanted to announce our wedding to his brothers and Chiara the next day. We'd all gathered in the kitchen for breakfast, Livio on Chiara's lap and Greta on mine.
You have a new wedding to look forward to,
Reilly said without warning. Every pair of eyes darted from him, then to me. My cheeks flushed. I wasn't sure what Savio and Nino thought of the situation. Adamo and Chiara liked me, but the other two... Will we be allowed to kidnap someone, or at least spill some blood? Since you sampled the goods before, bloody sheets won't happen after all. Savio drawled, grinning. Reilly reached over the table and hit him over the head. Savio only chuckled.
Be careful I don't spill your blood.
Adamo smiled at me, then rolled his eyes at Savio. Chiara got up, handing Livio to Reilly so she could hug me. I'm so happy. Savio and Nino definitely didn't look unhappy, but their reaction wasn't as enthusiastic as Chiara's or Adamo's. Not that I had expected it to be. When Savio got up to take a call, I followed after him, but waited until he was done before I approached him. He eyed me curiously when he noticed me. He didn't look like a teenager anymore, especially now that he was sporting stubble. Are we good? I asked.
If you're talking about the soup incident, that's forgotten. Trust me, most people want to do worse to me, especially women, so I've learned not to hold grudges.
He shrugged.
And we were the ones who held you captive, so you have more reason to be pissed.
True, but my family kidnapped your younger brother and almost killed your oldest. So I guess we're even? Savio's expression tightened briefly at the mention of my family, and my own stomach churned painfully.
You are part of our family now. I don't give a fuck about the past. Just make sure you don't break Remo's fucking heart.
Do you think that's a possibility? I teased. His dark brows drew together.
Before you, I'd have bet my balls against it. To be honest, I wasn't sure if Remo had something resembling a heart.
He loves you. Savio looked away, obviously uncomfortable.
We are brothers. We'll die for each other.
I smiled.
We should return.
Savio muttered.
I don't want Remo to think we're getting it on behind his back.
I snorted. Sorry, Savio. Nothing against you, but you don't stand a chance. Savio gave me an arrogant smile.
You like what you see. Admit it.
He sauntered back into the kitchen before I could shoot something back. But for some reason, his insufferable ego was almost endearing. It reminded me a bit of Samuel, which was consoling and painful at the same time. After my conversation with Savio, I felt better. Now I only needed to straighten out things with Nino. He and I had never really warmed up to each other, and I wasn't sure if it was because Nino didn't like me or if it was because of his nature. Remo leaned in when I sat down beside him.
Did he behave?
Savio rolled his eyes at his brother. He tried, I said.
That's all I can hope for. Maybe they'll try your patience as they do mine.
Raising twins will teach you the patience of a saint. I doubt your brothers can test me.
We'll see,
Savio said with a chuckle.
And don't hold your breath. Remo won't reach sainthood anytime soon.
I don't want him to be a saint, I said, looking at Navio and Remo, both watching me with those impossibly dark eyes. After breakfast, I asked Nino if we could talk. We headed into the garden, despite Remo's suspicious expression. Do you disapprove of our wedding? Nino assessed me without a flicker of emotion.
No, I never considered marriage an option for Remo, but that doesn't mean I don't think it's a good thing. It was for me, despite my own reluctance in regards to marriage.
I nodded. You never seemed to like me much.
It was never a matter of dislike, Serafina. You were our captive, the enemy, and I didn't want Remo to lose himself in his game. I thought it wouldn't work. But I was wrong. You saved him.
I couldn't let my family kill him. Nino shook his head.
That's not what I mean.
I waited, watching Nino's profile as he stared off into the distance.
Remo and we are messed up in ways that can't be fixed. Not really. For someone to accept us despite what we are, it takes a lot of forgiveness and love. Our past, it broke certain parts of us.
Remo never talks about the past. Nino nodded.
He'll tell you eventually. Give him time.
We have all our lives.
Remo. I held Serafina in my arms after sex. My chest pressed up to her back, my nose buried in her soft hair, relishing in her sweet scent. She traced the scars on my palm. She did it often. In the beginning it had bothered me because it was part of me I didn't share with anyone except for Nino. I was 9, I began, then stopped because even with Nino I'd never discussed what had happened. Words had always seemed lacking to convey our shared horrors. The smell of blood filled my nose as it always did when I remembered that day. Soon, the stench of burning fabric and skin joined the metallic tang. Serafina's fingers on my palm had stilled. I love you no matter what. I've heard of every horror you committed, and I'm still here. She was. I could imagine what kind of stories were whispered in the outfit, and they were all true. And Serafina had experienced a small part of our nature when I'd captured her, when I'd cut her. Looking at the faded white scar, I still felt a fucking twinge in my chest. I brushed aside her hair and kissed the nape of her neck. That she found it in her heart to love me despite it all, that she trusted me with our children, it seemed impossible. I know what I am, but my father, he was monstrous in a different way. He enjoyed torturing the people he was meant to protect, just as much as he did his enemies, maybe even more. My mother loved and feared him equally, and she allowed him to humiliate and torture her because of it, allowed him to do the same to us. Love made her weak. Serafina gave a small shake of her head. Real love doesn't make you weak. Love how it's meant to be makes you stronger. But there's no room for fear where there's love. I tightened my hold around her. Don't you fear me? I used to, but not anymore, and never again. I rested my forehead against her hair. Very few people didn't fear me. My brothers and maybe Kiara, and that was what I wanted, what I worked for. Eventually she hated my father more than she loved him, and she decided to punish him in the only way she thought she could. I closed my eyes, remembering that day. Mother came into my bedroom in her long nightgown, which was straining over her belly. She never brought us to bed or said good night, so I tensed when I saw her in the doorway. I'd gotten me and my brothers ready for bed, while she lay on the sofa, staring at nothing. Raimo, my boy, can you come with me? I narrowed my eyes. She sounded too caring, too loving. My boy? She sounded like a mother. She smiled and I took a hesitant step forward, more hopeful than suspicious. Nino and Savio are already in my room. That convinced me. I followed her toward her bedroom. For a second I considered slipping my hand in hers. But she had never held my hand like that, and I was too old now. The moment I stepped inside the bedroom, she threw the door shut and closed us in. My eyes registered Nino kneeling on the floor, cradling his arm. Everything was red. Rivulets of red trailed down his arms, his wrists gaping open, his eyes locked on mine. He wasn't making a sound, only crying as he bled. Blood everywhere. It clogged my nose. I frantically looked for Savio and found him motionless on the bed. A cry wedged itself into my throat until I noticed the rise and fall of his chest. Not gone. Mother stepped in front of me and grabbed my arm. Silver flashed before my eyes and I jerked. My hands and face burned as the blade cut me. I hit and clawed and roared, fighting her off. And then she stopped and the smell of smoke filled the room. The curtains were burning. We'd burn. We'd all burn. Nino began to hum, rocking back and forth, pale and sweaty. I rushed toward the window. Outside I heard the shouts of my father's men. I ripped at the curtains and flames licked at my palms and neck and arms, snatching hungrily at my skin. I screamed as I broke the window. I helped Nino out, then grabbed Savio, and jumped out of the window with him in my arms. Bones broke and I burned all over. Agony, pure and overwhelming. Staring up at the window, I saw our mother's crying, desperate face amidst the smoke and flame. Crying because I'd taken her revenge from her, because I hadn't died with my brothers as we were supposed to. I wanted her to burn, wanted her gone from our life. I wanted her dead. Serafina was quiet when I finished. She swallowed. How can a mother do that to their children? I die for Greta and Nevio. I never hurt them. And if you ever hurt them, Raimo, I'll kill you. That's a promise. I hope you will, because if I hurt them, I deserve nothing less than a knife to the fucking heart. Serafina turned around in my arms, her blue eyes fierce and trusting. But you won't ever hurt them. I know you won't, and you protect the people you love. I nodded. I won't, and nobody else will either. I'd fucking destroy anyone who tried. She traced the scar over my eyebrow. I know it's wrong, but I wish I could have killed your mother for what she did to you. My chest tightened. I didn't tell her that my mother was still very much alive. I brought Serafina's hand up to my face and kissed her palm, then the scar I had created. I won't allow you to be dragged down into my darkness. I was going to kill my mother one day. One day, Nino and I would be strong enough to do it. That's not your choice alone. I rule over hundreds of men. I can be very convincing if I try. She smiled a slow, fierce smile. Believe me, I know. You convinced me to fall in love with my captor, but I can be very stubborn. I pulled her closer. That's true. You almost brought me to my knees. She raised one perfect blonde eyebrow. Almost. You had me lying in my own blood at your feet. Isn't that enough? I asked in a low voice. Don't do that ever again. I won't. The next blood I'll bathe in won't be my own. Realization flickered in her eyes. She sighed, then kissed me. You swore not to kill my family. Angel, I swore not to kill them that day. The men in your family are high-ranking outfit members. Your uncle is Dante fucking Cavallaro. If I want to win this war, I'll have to kill him. And I will win this fucking war. Because if I don't, Cavallaro will, and that means Nevio and Greta, you, my brothers, won't be safe. And I don't care how many I'll have to kill to guarantee your fucking safety. I will kill everyone who threatens the people under my protection. I touched her throat, stroking the soft skin there. You can't have it all. You have to make a choice. She shook her head. I made my choice, Ramo. I chose you, and I'll choose you over and over again. Fuck. I didn't deserve this woman.
Serafina. We'd been living in Las Vegas for 2 months now. I was starting to feel at home. More at home than I'd felt in Minneapolis since I'd given birth to my twins. I kept sending Samuel messages, but they became less frequent because of his lack of reaction. Every week I'd sent him a short note telling him I was well and a photo of the twins and me. He hadn't replied so far, but I knew he'd read them, and even that was a small victory. He hadn't blocked me. He still wanted to know how I was doing, even though I was practically the enemy now. The war between the Camorra and the outfit wouldn't end any time soon, even if things had calmed down for the moment. Dante was probably planning something, and I was fairly certain Nino and Remo wouldn't ease down on the outfit either. Remo's birthday was tomorrow, and even if he didn't celebrate it, I wanted to give him something special. It was difficult to come up with a present for someone who ruled over the West Coast and could buy anything he wanted because money wasn't an issue. It had taken me a long time to come up with something that held meaning and showed Remo what he meant to me. Early in the morning, after another sleepless night with the twins, I approached Nino, who was swimming his usual laps in the pool. Chiara was keeping watch over the babies, since they were both rather needy at the moment due to their teething. Nino noticed me standing beside the pool and swam toward the edge.
Is something the matter?
I have a favor to ask of you. Nino hoisted himself out of the water. My eyes scanned the myriad of tattoos on his upper body and thighs. Nino regarded me curiously, and I realized I'd been staring. Sorry, I didn't mean to gawk, but I was wondering where you've had your tattoos done. Nino walked over to the lounge chair and picked up his towel.
Some of them I did myself. The ones in places I can't reach I had done in a tattoo studio not too far away.
You do tattoos?
I can do them, yes,
he said.
Why?
I hesitated. Because I want to get a tattoo. Can you do it for me?
That depends what exactly you want.
I want angel wings on the back of my neck, I said, a flush spreading on my cheeks under Nino's scrutiny. I wasn't sure if he knew Remo's nickname for me, but it felt like something personal I was sharing.
Wings I can do, if you have a design in mind. Can you show me where exactly you want the tattoo?
He came up to me and I pushed my hair to the side, baring the nape of my neck and touching the spot. Here.
It will be painful,
Nino warned. I sent him a look. I gave birth to twins. I think I can handle a needle. Nino inclined his head.
That is true. While I can't assess the force of labor pain since I've never experienced it, I assume it's excruciating.
It is, I said. So you will do it?
If it's your wish, then yes. When?
As soon as possible. The tattoo is Reilly's birthday present. Again, Nino gave me a mildly curious look.
We can do it later in the afternoon. I can set up everything in one of the guest rooms.
Thank you, I said.
Thank me once it's done and you're happy with the outcome.
He paused.
I assume you don't want Reilly to find out for now.
I nodded. If possible.
It's a secret I don't mind keeping from my brother.
As promised, Nino had set up everything in a guest bedroom in his wing. I was nervous, despite my best intentions not to be. Nino oozed calm as I stretched out on my stomach on the bed. He disinfected my neck before he touched the tattoo needle to the skin, and I winced at the first sting. I soon got used to the burning sensation. Nino moved quickly, meticulously, and I didn't speak as he worked, not wanting to distract him. When he was finally done, I sat up and accepted the mirror Nino held out to me. He held a second mirror behind my neck. The outcome was more stunning than I could have ever imagined. I didn't know it was possible to paint such intricate artwork with a needle. The feathers of the wings looked so real, I expected them to flutter in the wind. It's beautiful, I admitted. Nino nodded.
Reilly will appreciate the message.
You know that he calls me Angel?
I overheard him saying it, yes. And you are the counterpart to his fallen angel on his back.
Did you tattoo it as well?
I did,
Nino murmured. Why the broken, singed wings? The fallen angel is kneeling, and the tips of the feathers are crooked and burning. Nino regarded me closely.
What did Reilly tell you about our past?
He told me your mother tried to kill you, and that you almost burned to death. Nino's face tightened, and he nodded.
Reilly burned to save us. I never asked Reilly about the details, why he wanted to get the tattoo, but I think it has something to do with that day.
Thank you, Nino. Nino gave a small shake of his head.
No, thank you.
Hiding my tattoo from Reilly proved difficult. I had it covered with my hair, but when I moved my head, I often had to stop myself from wincing. That evening, after bringing the twins to bed, Reilly pulled me against him in our bedroom, his hands squeezing my butt before they moved higher. He kissed me and touched my neck. I drew back with a wince before I could stop myself. His eyes narrowed.
What's wrong?
I considered making up something, but Reilly was too good at detecting lies, and his birthday was only 2 more hours away. This was supposed to be your birthday present, I said softly, as I lifted my hair and turned so he could see my neck. Reilly was quiet, and I risked a look at him over my shoulder. Slowly he raised his eyes from my wings with a strange smile.
Wings?
I smiled. Because you gave me wings. He shook his head, his dark eyes softening.
Angel,
he said quietly, brushing his fingers over my tender skin.
You had wings all along. You only needed a little push to spread them and fly.
I turned back to face him. Maybe, but I wouldn't have done it on my own. We kissed slowly at first, but Reilly quickly deepened our kiss, and suddenly we were on the bed, tugging at our clothes and stroking every inch of naked skin we could reach. I pushed Reilly onto his back, smiling, and his answering smile, all desire and dominance, sent a stab of arousal through me. Leaning forward to claim his mouth for a kiss, I lowered myself on his erection, groaning at the feeling of fullness. Remo pushed up into a sitting position, bringing us chest to chest, racing heartbeat to racing heartbeat. I gasped at the shift of him inside of me, at the feel of his strength as his arms slung around my back. I rolled my hips, driving him deeply into me as we kissed. We held each other's gaze as we always did, and those dark eyes captivated me as they'd done from the very start, so often cruel and merciless, but passionate and reverent when they rested on me, tender and caring when they regarded our twins. When we'd both found our release, we stayed wrapped up in each other like that, our breathing ragged, bodies slick with sweat. I ran my fingertips over Remo's back, tracing the spot where the wings of his fallen angel spread out. He trailed his own fingertips upwards, along my spine until he reached my new tattoo. I winced slightly, and Remo's touch turned even softer. My heart was ready to burst out of my ribcage from the look in his eyes. Remo scanned my expression, his brows drawing together. I sighed. Sorry. Since my pregnancy, I'm more emotional. I hope it'll go away soon. I cleared my throat, then rested my palm over his shoulder blade. What's the meaning of your tattoo? You know why I got mine, but I wonder why you got yours. A hint of wariness flashed in Remo's eyes, the walls he was used to keeping up, wanting to lock back in place.
Nino did it, about 7 years ago.
I nodded to show him I was listening.
It's a fallen angel, like you said. It represents the fall Nino and I took on the day our mother tried to kill us.
My brows snapped together. Fall? You saved your brothers. How's that falling? Remo's expression was dark and twisted, his eyes far away, haunted, angry.
Until that day, Nino and I were innocent. After that, we weren't. We'd already experienced our fair share of violence from our father, but it never affected us like that day did. The flames of that day, they singed our wings, and our fall into darkness began. We became who we are today. That's why the fallen angel is kneeling in pools of blood.
I noticed that the fallen angel knelt in pools of some kind of liquid, that a few of its singed feathers dipped into it, but I hadn't realized it was blood. For a moment I wasn't sure what to say, how to console Remo. Could words ever be enough to make the horrors of his past better? I'm sorry, I said quietly. Remo's gaze focused on me, tore away from the images of the past.
You aren't the one who should be sorry, and I won't forgive her, no matter how often she'd apologize. Not that she ever did.
I froze. Your mother didn't die that day?
No. Even though I wanted her dead, I'm glad she survived that day, or Adamo wouldn't be here. She was heavily pregnant with him.
I shook my head, completely at a loss over what Remo's mother had done. Where is she?
In a mental facility.
Remo's voice dipped and turned vicious.
We are paying for it so she can live and breathe and exist when she shouldn't be doing either.
Why haven't you killed her? With anyone else, I would have never asked something like that. But this was Remo. Killing was in his nature, and his words made it clear that he hated his mother. Remo pressed his mouth to the crook of my neck.
Because, he growled, for some fucking messed up reason, Nino and I are too weak to kill her. We haven't seen her in over 5 years.
Do Savio and Adamo know what happened?
Savio is known for a while, and we talked to Adamo a few months after he got initiated.
I stroked Remo's neck. Have you thought about visiting her again to try and find closure? Remo looked up, his expression harsh.
There won't be any closure until she's dead. I don't want to waste another second of my life on her. She's already fucking dead to me. You and Greta and Navio are what matters now. My brothers are what matters. That's it.
I kissed him to show him I understood. I didn't think it was as easy as that. Their mother still dominated part of their existence, but I respected that Remo wasn't ready to seek a solution now. It wasn't my place to meddle. He and his brothers would have to face their mother one day, and maybe then they could move past their demons. All I could do was show Remo a better future, a future with a family that loved him. He'd always only had his brothers, but now he had us as well.
Chapter 32. Remo. Serafina, Leona, and Chiara were busy in the kitchen, baking birthday cakes for the twins whose first birthday was today. It was already close to noon. I doubted they'd get the cake ready in time for the afternoon, but I didn't say anything. It seems like a waste of effort to create elaborate cakes in the shape of a unicorn in a car when their only purpose is to be eaten. Nino commented as we left the kitchen to give the women their space. They'd found images of complicated cakes on the internet and were determined to recreate them for Greta and Nevio. I don't give a fuck, but Serafina is so damn excited about the cakes, so I guess it's worth the work. I doubt the kids will care much. They'll only smash their hands into the cake and stuff their faces, I said, peering down at Greta, whom I cradled in the crook of my arm. She felt completely comfortable in my presence now, and it felt like one of the biggest triumphs in my life to have her big dark eyes look up at me with trust. And by my fucking honor and everything else that mattered, I'd never do anything to betray that trust. When she'd been wary of me in the beginning, it had felt like a knife to the heart. I'd always relished the fear in the eyes of others, with the exception of my brothers. But with my children and Serafina, I never wanted to see it again. I never considered marriage an option for the two of us, Nino said thoughtfully as we stopped beside the pool. I never thought I'd find a woman I wouldn't want to kill after a few hours. Greta gave me a toothy grin, and I stroked her hair back. It had grown quite long and curled slightly, like Adamo's hair did. Mia cara. Ready for your first swim? Nevio was settled in Nino's arm, and as usual making grabby hands at the colorful tattoos. I could already guess what he wanted to get once he was older. Fabiano was already lounging on the pink flamingo float Savio had used before I'd banned any kind of whoring in the mansion. I rolled my eyes at him. That's a disturbing sight. Fabiano shrugged. It's comfortable. Savio and Adamo were playing water ball close to the waterfall in the pool and bickering as usual. It was the first swim for the babies, since we didn't have a heated pool before, and only had it installed now that the babies were part of our household. Nino slowly stepped into the pool with Nevio. Nevio let out a screech, smiling at me. My fucking heart swelled with pride. That boy didn't fear anything. Sometimes it almost worried me how similar to me he was. He'd get himself in trouble as soon as he could walk better. Nino moved over to Fabiano on the float, and Nevio made his grabby hands, wanting to ride on the flamingo with Fabiano. Fabiano raised his eyes to mine, asking for permission. I nodded, twisting my forearm with the tattoo. Between us, it meant more than just an oath to the Camorra, more than being a made man. The day Fabiano had sworn himself to me, to the Camorra, he'd become family, and I trusted him with my kids. I'd never told him, but I got why he'd acted the way he did when I tried to drive a wedge between Leona and him. He wanted to protect her, wanted to protect someone who could see past the fucking darkness, who loved him despite it all. Serafina had changed my view on things, and if it was in my nature, I might have apologized to Fabiano for how I'd acted. Fabiano held out his arms, and Nino handed him Nevio, who kicked happily with his legs until he sat in the front of the float, holding on to the neck of the flamingo. I hope you gave that thing a good scrub, I called over to Savio, who gave me the finger. I went down the steps into the pool. The moment Greta's feet touched the water, her face twisted. but I made a low, soothing sound and she relaxed. Shifting her so her head was level with mine, I lowered us further into the warm water. Greta held on to me, eyeing the water critically. After a while, she smiled and hit the water with her palm. I went over to the flamingo float, but Greta tightened her hold on me when I tried to put her on it. Nevio babbled, his tiny legs wiggling as Fabiano held him by the waist. Both Greta and Nevio were big on the babbling, but they both hadn't said any word except for Mom. And while Nevio was already making his first steps, Greta only crawled. She was a cautious kid and reminded me a lot of Nino. Nevio grinned at me, squeezing the neck of the flamingo before he extended his arms with his grabby hands. "Dad! Dad!" For a moment I froze, my expression stilling. Fabiano grinned, and Nino squeezed my shoulder. I wrapped my arm around Nevio and pressed him to my chest. Greta pressed her wet palm against Nevio's cheek, giggling. I waded through the water with the two, dipping lower, causing them to scream with joy. Serafina headed toward us in a heart-stoppingly sexy white bikini, Chiara and Leona close behind her. She lowered herself to the edge of the pool. "Mom!" Greta called, and I handed our daughter over to Serafina. I stayed close and touched Serafina's thigh. She raised her eyebrows. "Something the matter? You have a strange expression." Nevio said Dad. I told her. She leaned down and kissed me. Her expression so full of happiness, it filled even my cruel heart with warmth. "Dad," Nevio confirmed, hitting the surface with his palm again and sending water everywhere. Serafina shook her head with a soft smile as she slid into the water with Greta pressed to her chest. "This is close to perfection," I said, indicating the people gathered around us. "Everyone who matters is here, and I'd fucking protect them all with my life." A shadow passed over Serafina's face, and she averted her gaze, blinking. I curled my hand over her neck, bringing our faces closer together. She locked gazes with mine. "I know you miss them, especially your brother." She nodded. "I do, and I wish you could meet Sophia and my mom. I wish they could see you as I see you." Serafina saw me in a way most people never would, because I'd never allow them to do so. "I can't promise you peace. It's not only my call to make, and there's a lot of bad blood between the Camorra and the outfit. I won't back down, not when Cavallaro was the first to breach my territory. I still wanted to bathe in Cavallaro's blood, and I knew he shared the sentiment. Peace would never happen." "I know, and I can deal with it. This is my new family now, and I'm happy that the babies and I are here where we belong." She paused, sighing. "I can't help missing my family, especially Samuel. We've always been so close, and now I haven't heard from him in so long. It's hard." I was used to handling things, used to things going my way, but this was one thing I couldn't change for her. I wasn't going to make a peace offering toward Cavallaro, even when the attack on Rogers Arena was orchestrated by Scuderi. But the attack on our race in Kansas definitely wasn't. He tortured my brother. That was another thing I couldn't easily forget. I wanted them to bleed. At least Dante fucking Cavallaro. Greta giggled again, and Nevio fell in. Serafina's expression brightened, and she smiled at me. Fuck. That smile got me every time.
Serafina. Nevio was a small whirlwind, and it had only gotten worse since he started to walk. It was the day before our wedding, and only 4 days since the twins' birthday, and Chiara was busy with last-minute preparation, even though it was going to be a small affair. Adamo had babysitter duty for Nevio, which mainly consisted in running after him and making sure he didn't break his neck or got his hands on anything breakable. Every time Adamo lifted Nevio into his arms, he began wailing in protest. I gave Adamo an understanding smile when he let out a sigh. "I can take over if you want." Adamo smiled sheepishly.
I need a break.
Chuckling, I took Navio from him and hoisted him up on my hip, despite his loud protest. "Mom, no! No, no, no!"
I was so looking forward to them speaking,
Ramos said, from his spot on a blanket where he played with Greta while trying to get work done on his iPad simultaneously.
But Navio enjoys the word no a bit too much for my taste.
No, Mom, and Dad were the only words that Navio had mastered so far. "No!" Navio bellowed. I laughed. Ramos shook his head.
"Navio, that's enough."
Navio frowned, his lips turning into a pout. "No?" Ramos' mouth twitched. "If you're being quiet, I'll set you back down," I said. Navio regarded me, then Remo, obviously unsure if our offer was worth it. Greta crawled closer to Remo, and he looked back down to her. She pressed her hands to his legs and slowly pushed up, her butt raised. Then she stumbled to her feet. Remo reached out, and she curled her tiny hand around his index finger, and Remo's other fingers covered hers, steadying her, and my eyes began to water.
"Good,"
Remo encouraged. She looked at him, surprised, and still a bit unsure. She took a hesitant step, and he smiled.
"Very good, Miyakata."
Her smile widened, and she took a few uncoordinated, shaky steps and stumbled into him. He became still as she clung to his shirt and finger, peering up at him with absolute trust. I set Navio down because I could tell he wanted to join them. The second his tiny feet hit the ground, he wobbled toward Greta and his dad. Remo wrapped an arm around him as well. Greta released Remo's shirt and made the grabby motion when she wanted to be picked up. She still preferred to be carried. Remo put one hand under her backside, while the other studied her back and pressed her to his chest. He held out his hand to Navio.
"Arm?"
Navio nodded for once, and Remo bent down to lift him up as well. He straightened with a kid on each hip and pressed a kiss to the top of their heads. His eyes found mine, and I didn't care that he saw my tears. Today I gladly gave them to him. Remo was beyond redemption in the eyes of so many. He was the cruelest man I knew. But with every atom in my body, I knew that he would never hurt our children. He would protect them. They were Falcones. They were his. Ours. We would both die for them, for each other. Tomorrow I'd officially become a Falcone, and so would my kids. I knew we'd all carry the name with pride. Chapter 33. Serafina. The wedding was scheduled for late afternoon. I chose a boho-style dress without pearls or a bodice. The top was knitted with a V-line, and the skirt flowed freely around my body, touching the ground in soft waves. My hair was down and fell in untamed curls around my shoulders. I allowed myself another moment to regard my reflection. This day felt so very different to my last wedding day. Back then I'd been scared of the unknown, but determined to do what was expected of me, content to marry a man I hardly knew and definitely wasn't in love with. Today I was absolutely certain of my love for my future husband. Remo held my heart in an iron grip, and I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. Love can bloom in the darkest place, and ours did wildly, freely, untamable. I hadn't thought it possible to feel that way for someone. Occasionally I dreamed of it, or foolishly hoped for it, but I knew it to be a rare gift in our circles. I left our bedroom and walked through the silent hallways of the mansion, a place that had become my home and a safe haven for Greta and Navio. Falcone. A name we all would carry with pride. A name that our kids would always be able to speak with their heads held high. Adamo waited for me in the game room and smiled when he spotted me. The French windows were open, and a gentle breeze carried in, warm and soothing. Adamo was dressed in slacks and a white shirt, and had gotten a haircut to tame his wild curls for the occasion. Tears sprang into my eyes, and my chest constricted painfully. This was supposed to be Samuel. I wanted him at my side in one of the most important moments of my life. He was meant to walk me down the aisle. It had always been meant to be him, but he wasn't here. Adamo extended his hand, and I put mine in it. He squeezed. "One day your family will understand. One day there will be peace." I peered up at him, at his kind smile and warm eyes, then lowered my gaze to the burn mark on his forearm, on the healed cuts. Occasionally I still saw the haunted look in his eyes, and I wondered if he hid the worst of his struggle from us. He was barely home anymore. So much pain and suffering in the name of revenge and honor. "You want peace after what my family did to you?" "You're going to marry the man who kidnapped you." I laughed. He had me there. If someone had told me on the day of my almost wedding to Danilo that I'd ever consider becoming a Falcone, I would have laughed in their face. So much had changed since then. I hardly knew the girl from back then anymore. She had been replaced by someone stronger. Adamo lightly tugged at my hand and indicated toward the gardens. "Come, they're all waiting, and you know how Remo is. Patience isn't his strength." No, it wasn't, but he'd waited for me more than once. Adamo led me out of the mansion and past the pool toward the small congregation down the lawn. My bare feet touched the warm grass, and then I spotted Remo at the end of the aisle, below a white wood ark, and a sense of rightness filled me. Blood-red roses trailed around the ark, contrasting beautifully with the white. Chiara had arranged everything with Leona's help. It wasn't a big feast with hundreds of guests, most of whom neither of us would have cared about. It was just us, Remo's brothers, Fabiano, Chiara, Leona, and the twins, and it felt perfect that way. By not inviting every underboss of the Camorra, Remo had risked insulting a lot of people. But knowing him, he didn't give a damn, and his soldiers probably knew better than to voice their displeasure should they feel it. In his dark slacks, black dress shirt, and blood-red vest, Remo was a sight to behold. Tall and dark and brutally handsome, his eyes scorched me even from afar, and one corner of his mouth pulled up in that twisted smile, always on the verge of darkness, that I'd come to love. "Ready?" Adamo asked when we arrived at the starting point of the long aisle of white petals. I didn't even want to know how long Chiara and Leona had spent arranging them neatly in a pathway, but they had insisted on doing it. Yes, I could say it without doubt, without hesitation. Everyone had gathered to both sides of the ark. Chiara held Greta in her arms, and Nino held Navio. I couldn't wait for them to be parents as well. And then I caught sight of a blonde head off to the side, away from the rest, at the very fringes, and my throat tightened up. My gaze locked with Samuel's. He stood with his hands shoved inside his pockets, his expression unreadable. For a moment I was completely immobilized by my emotions. Pure joy and a flicker of worry, because there definitely wasn't peace between the Camorra and the outfit. I pushed the last sentiment aside, focusing on the fact that my twin, my Samuel, was here on one of the most important days of my life. Adamo and I started walking down the aisle. I still wished Sam was the one walking beside me, but I understood why he couldn't, why his pride didn't allow him to hand me over to Remo. My gaze drew away from Samuel toward the man who had captured my heart with wild abandon. Remo's dark eyes held mine as I headed toward him. When we arrived in the front, Greta spotted me and gave me a huge grin. A single petal stuck to the corner of her mouth. That was why Chiara had only bought edible flowers. She was just perfect with kids. My heart overflowed with love for all of them. Navío stood beside Nino, or rather held onto his leg, but I could tell that he was growing tired of standing still. He'd soon roam the gardens on unsteady legs. I let go of Adamo and took Remo's outstretched hand. Smiling up at Remo, I whispered, How did you get Samuel to come? My eyes darted to my twin for a moment, disbelieving, incredulous, and so impossibly happy. I looked back up to Remo, trying to hold back my emotions. Remo ran his thumb over the back of my hand, his dark eyes filled with warmth he didn't bestow on many.
I swore he'd be safe if he came. I used your phone to call him. It was a difficult process.
I swallowed. I could imagine how much time and effort it had cost to convince Samuel to come here, to risk so much. And I knew that Remo would have to let go of some of his pride to make a step toward my brother, the enemy. He'd done it for me. He tortured you, almost killed you. Remo squeezed my hand.
I did worse. I took you from him. If I was him, I wouldn't forgive me either.
Thank you for bringing him here, Remo. I touched his chest, hoping he could see just how fiercely I loved him.
Whatever's in there, it's yours,
he said with a dark smile. And I love every part of it, of you, the good, the bad, the light, the dark, even your blackest corners. Remo's eyes flashed with fierce affection. Nino did the ceremony, since we didn't want any outsiders around for our special day. He'd gotten the license to do so only recently, which didn't pose a big problem in Las Vegas. We kept the ceremony short, foregoing a long-winded traditional speech before we spoke our vows. We each had chosen rings for the other that we hadn't seen yet. I took Remo's hand and slipped the ring on. It was a black tungsten carbide ring with an ebony wood inlay. Remo raised his eyebrows in surprise. Carbide is twice as strong as steel, I whispered, because you are the strongest man I know. I smiled at the flicker of adoration in his eyes. And ebony, because wood is enduring, and because you gave not only me roots, but also our children and your brothers. The look on Remo's face made it clear that I had made the right choice, and relief filled me. He took my hand and slipped on a ring in the shape of 2 entwining wings, one dotted with white diamonds, the other with black gemstones.
The white wing represents you,
Remo said in a low voice, leaning closer so only I could hear him.
Because you are pure perfection, my angel. And the black wing with the black sapphires represents me, my darkness, that you managed to accept.
Remo kissed me, his fingers touching the tattoo on my neck. You set me free, I said, my voice thick with emotion. He shook his head and our lips brushed, his eyes dark and intent.
I was the one who needed to be freed.
I kissed him fiercely, free of the shackles of his past. When we pulled away, I realized everyone had taken a few steps back to give us privacy. My eyes were drawn to Samuel, whose expression was like stone. I needed to talk to him, to embrace him. Remo squeezed my hand to show me it was okay. I headed for Samuel, and Remo released my hand, but my fingers clung to him, pulling him along.
Angel, you had one ruined wedding. Do you want to add a bloody one to your list?
I glanced at him. You won't attack my brother. His eyes went past me.
I won't.
And Samuel won't attack you either, I said firmly. Samuel stood tall, expression harsh as it settled on Remo. I finally let go of Remo's hand, and he stayed a few steps back as I bridged the remaining distance between Sam and me. I stopped right in front of my twin. I peered up at Samuel, and he lowered his gaze to mine, and despite everything I had done, everything he knew, his expression softened with love and tenderness. I started crying because I hadn't realized how much I'd missed him, how much I longed for his forgiveness. You came. I wrapped my arms around his middle, and he hugged me back.
I'd do anything for you, Fina. Even stare into the eyes of the man I want to kill more than anything in this world.
We stayed in each other's embrace for a few moments, trying to make every second last a lifetime, because we knew there would be few chances like this in the future. I pulled back, searching his blue eyes. They don't know you're here.
Nobody knows. If they did, it would be considered betrayal. We're at war.
You're risking too much for me, I whispered.
I didn't risk enough. That's why we're standing here today.
He sighed.
I got all of your messages. I read them, and I considered replying so often, but I was an idiot. I was angry and hurt.
I touched his cheek. Forgive me.
Fina, I'd forgive you of anything. But him,
Samuel indicated Remo.
Him I won't ever forgive for taking you from us. From me. Not in 1,000,000 years.
I swallowed. I love him. He's the father of my children. Samuel kissed my forehead.
That's why I won't put a bullet in his head today, even if I considered doing it on the way here.
Samuel's love for me stopped him from killing Remo, and Remo's love for me stopped him from killing my twin. I wished their love could also make them see past the feud, past the old hatred. Will you be safe?
Don't worry about me, Fina.
He raised his gaze to the man behind me.
I don't have to ask if you'll be safe, because his eyes tell me all I need to know. He's a fucking murderous bastard, but a bastard who will kill anyone daring to look at you the wrong way.
I glanced over my shoulder at Remo, who was regarding us with intent. He looked relaxed to someone who didn't know him very well, but I caught the subtle tension in his muscles, the vigilance in his eyes. He didn't trust Samuel. Further down beside the ark, Nino kept throwing evaluating looks our way as well. Remo will go through fire for me and our children, I whispered. Samuel nodded. I could tell that he needed to go. He was surrounded by his enemies, and even if I knew he was safe because Remo had declared him as such, he felt uncomfortable. Will I see you again? I can't lose you, Sam. Samuel rested his forehead against mine.
You won't lose me. I don't know how, but I'll try to talk to you on the phone and reply to your messages. But I can't come here again, and you can't come to Outfit territory.
Thank you for being here. He kissed my forehead again. Then, with another hard look toward Remo, he walked away, sideways, never fully turning his back because he didn't trust Remo's promise. When he finally disappeared from view, I released a sharp breath. A bittersweet happiness filled me. Remo came up behind me, his arms wrapping around my chest, pulling me against him.
You'll see him again. He won't give you up. He's as stubborn as you.
I gave him an indignant look. I'm not stubborn.
Of course not.
He kissed my shoulder blade, then lightly bit down on the crook of my neck, making me shiver with desire. I couldn't wait to be alone with him.
Remo. Serafina was practically shaking with arousal as I led her to our bedroom after the wedding feast. She was a beautiful bride, free and untamed and glowing with happiness. She was everything she was meant to be. When we arrived in our bedroom, she pushed me against the door, shutting it in the process. Standing on her tiptoes, she pressed her body against mine, her fingers raking through my hair as her mouth tasted mine. Fuck. I met her tongue with hunger and need as my hands cupped her ass through her dress, squeezing hard. She moaned into my mouth, rubbing her breasts against my chest. One of her hands slid down my chest and closed over my cock, which was already painfully hard. I rocked my hips, driving myself against her palm. Snatching up Serafina's hand, I turned us around, trapping her between the door and my body, her arm raised above her head, pressed into the wood. So dominant, she teased, and I silenced her with a harsher kiss, thrusting against her to show her what awaited her. I gathered her long skirt. Hold it up, Angel. I ordered. She bit her lip, stifling a smile. Her fingers curled over the fabric, and she held it up, revealing a flimsy lace thong. I got down on one knee, smiling darkly as I slid the thin piece of clothing down her legs, laying her pussy bare to me. Remember the first time I tasted your pussy? She widened her stance slightly, making a small, impatient rocking motion with her pelvis. How could I ever forget? It was the best thing I'd ever felt. Her voice was heavy with arousal. I'm going to make today even better, I promised. Please, Raimo, just taste me already. I hooked my palm under her knee and opened her up as I pressed her leg up against the door. Finally, I leaned forward and took a long lick. Pulling back, I rasped, "Oh, Angel, you're already so fucking ready for my cock." Her eyes narrowed. I don't care. I want your tongue first. Now stop talking. I chuckled, ridiculously turned on by her desire and bossiness. Thrusting 2 fingers into her, I began sucking her clit. She cried out, one of her hands clutching my head as I alternated between sucking her nub and her soft lips, while my fingers worked her deeply. Her wetness and the heady scent of her arousal drove me insane with desire, my cock close to combusting. I just wanted to fuck her, but she'd get what she wanted first. Her moans and whimpers turned more desperate as I drove her close to the brink, only to release her clit and suckle the inside of her thigh, my fingers stilling. "Raimo," she said, half angry, half desperate. I closed my mouth over her clit as I slammed my fingers into her, and Serafina arched up, crying out my name as her release shook her body. I kept thrusting and suckling until she began jerking, overwhelmed by the sensation. Sliding my fingers out of her channel, I dipped my tongue in, causing her to let out another low moan. I pushed to my feet, shoving down my pants and crashing my lips down against hers so she could taste herself. "Ready to be fucked now?" I growled. "Oh, yes," she groaned, her marble cheeks flushed with desire. I hoisted her up against the door, her dress bunched between our bodies as Serafina wrapped her legs around my hips. Locking gazes, I drove into her in one hard thrust. Her walls clamped down around my cock, and she tilted her head back with a gasp, baring that perfect throat. I marked her unblemished skin, my fingers digging into her soft thighs as I slammed into her again and again. She clung to my shoulders, her lips parted, lids hooded with pleasure. Her grip turned painful as she got closer, her heels digging into my ass. I groaned, my balls tightening, but I kept thrusting into her, pushing her up against the wall, and then she froze with a beautiful cry. It took all my fucking self-control not to be swept away with her. Grunting, I kept rocking my hips until she softened, and her head fell forward for an uncoordinated kiss. "Don't get too comfortable. I'm not done with you," I said roughly. She smiled against my mouth, her blonde hair sticking to her and my forehead as I carried her over to our bed. I dropped her down on the mattress, and she let out an indignant huff, her legs already parting in invitation. I shook my head with a dark smile. "On your knees." She rolled over, presenting her round ass cheeks, then knelt on the bed. The sight of her waiting for me like that made my cock twitch. I leaned over her and bit her ass cheek before I pulled her toward my waiting cock. I caught the slight tensing of her muscles, the way she braced herself, but she loosened, turned soft when I slid into her pussy, not her ass. We tried it a few times. It had always been my favorite before her, but I could tell Serafina only did it for me. She didn't enjoy it, and in turn it had lost its appeal to me. I wanted Serafina crazy with lust, not tense with discomfort. I established a hard, fast rhythm, my balls slapping against her pussy. Serafina reached under her body and began stroking her clit. brushing my dick with her nails in the process, driving me completely crazy. Leaning forward, I brushed her hair aside so I could see her inked wings. I had already been close, and as I slammed into Serafina deeper than before, I finally let loose. Serafina got caught by my climax as well and bucked up, her arms giving out as her own release hit her. I kept pumping into her until I was completely spent. I gave her ass a clap before I pulled out and dropped down beside her. She snuggled against me, our breathing ragged, bodies slick with sweat. We shared a slow, lingering kiss. I wrapped an arm around her shoulder, and Serafina linked our hands, holding them up. The winged ring with the diamonds and black sapphires looked perfect on her long finger. I had it made for her, and it had taken the jeweler several tries to get it exactly how I wanted it. His forehead was always slick with perspiration the moment I'd paid him a visit. Serafina had caught me by surprise with her choice for me, but she couldn't have chosen better. The black carbide with the ebony center didn't feel foreign on my hand like I'd feared it would. I'd never worn any kind of jewelry, and I had thought I never would. Marriage had been out of the question. I'd never understood its appeal. I had companionship with my brothers, and I had enough women at my disposal for sex. I'd never cared for any woman, except for Chiara maybe, but that was a different kind of caring. And then came Serafina, my angel, the woman meant to be my greatest triumph, and she was, only not in the way I'd thought she'd be. "What are you thinking?" Serafina murmured, her voice slow and relaxed. "That you are my greatest triumph." She peered up at me. "I'm the queen. You are the king, and you used me to put the outfit in checkmate." Her voice was soft and teasing, because she knew I didn't mean it like that. Not anymore. "If anyone's been checkmated, then it's me," I murmured. "You knocked me over, wiped away my resolve, captured my cruel black heart." She raised her head. "Neither of us has been checkmated. We both won the game. We got each other. We got Nevio and Greta. You had to lose something to win." She nodded, but her eyes weren't sad. "I did. But losing something makes you appreciate the things you have so much more. I don't regret a thing, because it brought me here. I love you with every fiber of my being." I pulled her in for a kiss, still stunned that she could ever love me after what I'd done. I lightly traced the almost invisible scar on her forearm. "And I love you," I murmured harshly. I never thought I'd utter those words to anyone, even though I'd admitted my feelings to Serafina before. "Because you brave my darkness every day. Because you should run, but you don't. Because you gave me the greatest gift of all, our children and yourself. I brave your darkness gladly, because your light shines all the brighter against it," she said. I kissed her fiercely. This woman had my cruel heart. She'd always have it. I was cruel. I was beyond redemption. But I didn't care as long as Serafina, as long as Nevio and Greta saw something redeeming when they looked at me. I'd make sure I'd never betray their love and trust. And if anyone ever dared to take them away from me, I'd show those unfortunate bastards what I was to those I didn't give a fuck about. The cruelest man of the West. This has been Twisted Pride, the Camorra Chronicles Book 3 by Cora Reilly. Narrated by Tortom and Charlie Angel. Copyright 2019 by Cora Reilly. Production copyright 2020 by Cora Reilly.